Hello and welcome back to Project 380. A few videos ago we saw the Mark II turbo started and running, but not for long. The engine lost all oil pressure. We're not quite sure why, but we're led to believe it may be that oil pump. So today I'm going to be ripping the engine out and tearing down the bottom end to see what has gone on with the oil pressure. But before I rip the engine out, my tuner's going to come round, check over a few things in the ECU, try and get the can check gauge working as it should, and just finish off a few loose ends. And he wants all the engine in and everything connected to do that, but once he's done that, we're going to get that engine straight out. Now I'm not going to film most of this, as we're going to try to do it as quickly as we can. I'll just film a few key moments. So Matty, my tuner, has just been round and sorted a few things out in the ECU, but most importantly the can check gauge is now working properly with the ECU and displaying oil pressure. He also programmed everything else into the can check gauge and everything seems to be working fine. I didn't film a lot of what he was doing as I was tidying up my garage, trying to get to my engine stand, which I forgot has already got an engine on it. And I think I've left my engine crane at my dad's, so I'm going to have to go find that. But now since Matty has done what he needed to do with the ECU, I could turn that isolator off and start ripping this engine out. I'm going to get that coolant drained and remove the radiator. Well, I really wish I didn't start with the coolant. There's coolant everywhere on the floor now as I've missed my bucket, but the radiator is all out, both coolant pipes are out. I've also taken off the strut brace and removed the catch can and the lines. I'm going to let the floor dry up a little bit and concentrate on stuff up above. So I think I'm going to take the intake off, disconnect all the hoses and the throttle cable, and that'll give me better access to the alternator and the starter motor. Well, isn't this a sad sight? The engine's all out, there's coolant and oil everywhere, but the engine is on the engine stand. Unfortunately, my camera died and I've lost loads of footage, including uprating the front studs, but hopefully I can get that all recovered. But the engine's out now, time to turn that on the engine stand and get the sump off. That's everything on top and in front that we need to strip off. Now it's time to rotate that engine round on the stand and get the sump off. But I think while it's in this position, I'm going to take the oil filter off. I'm going to cut that open and just see whether there's any glitter inside of it. Charlie said that was hand tight. So I've got myself a little oil filter cutter. That could go on the oil filter like that and basically open it like a tin can. Looking at it, there's no glitter in there or chunks of metal. That all looks absolutely fine. All that's left to do is flip that engine upside down and take the sump off, and that's going to make A massive mess. My little drain pan ain't gonna catch a lot. I got a slight issue. This coolant reroute is going to hit the engine stand when I turn this over, and I haven't ordered a new gasket for that. So that's staying on. I'm just going to have to do the sump in this position. And I forgot, because I've got a VVT bottom end, I'm going to have to take the engine mounts off. Oh, that's tight. Well, there's nothing obvious in the sump. There's no metal chunks or glitter. The pickup tube doesn't seem to be blocked or bent, but now that pickup tube's got to come off, and then this girdle to then remove the oil pump. But so far, nothing seems to be amiss. Well, the gasket for the oil pump is definitely there, so that's not an issue. Just as a quick little test to make sure it wasn't the pickup tube, I'm going to spray some brake cleaner down this end and see whether it comes out this end. Yep, that's running fine. Who on earth would put this much sealant on? Nothing in there either. Right, time to get this oil pump off. That O-ring was definitely there, so that's not the problem. I think I'm going to have to strip this down and investigate. Well, nothing seems to be too bad in there. Everything seems to be free moving and the gears are in one piece. So let's take this plunger out. Ow, that hurt. Okay, well the spring just shot out. Let's see whether I can pull that plunger out. Well, I think that's the problem. That plunger is well and truly stuck in there. Well, that's a little bit scored up, and I think that was far too tight in the oil pump. So maybe that was my issue all along. So it's been quite a few weeks since that last clip. Matty's been round and checked everything over with me. We've actually taken all the main caps off and the big end bearings to inspect all of those. Took all the cam journals out to inspect all of those as well. But Matty was just a little bit concerned with the amount of grey in the oil pan. I've checked that out, that's non-magnetic. So it shouldn't be anything from the engine. I've got a feeling it's actually the remnants from the ARP lubricant that I've put on those studs, as it's a very similar colour. But to be safe, I think I'm going to flush that engine out. And to do that, I'm going to take a syringe, just fill it with some cheap oil. I'm going to force it in the oil galleyways of the engine, pump some oil in, and hopefully flush out any contaminants. So I'll start off by forcing it in here, making sure it comes out the filter hole, then take out the NOx sensor and the oil pressure sensor, make sure that all flows nicely, and then I'll remove some of the bungs on the head, force oil in there, flush all contaminants out if there is any, force some in the drain holes in the head, flip the engine over and do it all again. This is going to make a huge mess. This syringe was a little bit too small for this main oil hole, so I've got a slightly bigger one. So let's force some oil in there and see what happens. That came out of that sandwich plate nicely, but I forgot it's also going to come out of these oil cooler pipes. And I've already made a mess. So now I'm going to force oil into the centre part of this sandwich plate, which feeds the rest of the engine. Well, hopefully the camera caught that, but it did squirt out of all 5 main journal holes and made a mess, as my drip tray doesn't fit underneath the stand and my drip tray is just too small. So for definite, none of that is blocked up, and we've flushed out any contaminants. I'm going to move on to the oil pressure hole and the NOx sensor. I'm fairly satisfied that's all running clear now, so I've put the sensors back in, and that's pretty much covered the bottom end. Now moving on to the head. I've taken out this bung here and this bung here. That's the majority of the flow for the head. So I'm going to start off by pumping oil into this one, making sure I've got some flow and pumping out whatever contaminants may be in there. I'll put the bung back in that one and then concentrate on this one, make sure I've got flow to the turbo feed and pump any contaminants out. So when I pumped oil in here, that shot out of this bung really quickly. And then when I pumped oil into this bung, it came out of the turbo feed here. So we know that's all good. So I think off of camera, I'm going to clean the top of those ARP studs, as there's still quite a lot of ARP lubricant on them. And I'm convinced that is what is in the oil. And then pump some more oil in that bung there. I'm going to have to do that really quickly to try and get oil up to the cams, as everything I'm pumping in there is coming out the bottom of the engine and making a big old mess. That's a little bit cleaner now, and I've pumped some more oil through that bung, and I don't know whether you can see, but that is some fresh oil that's pumped up at that cam, and it's pumping through nice and clean. Time to test the drain and then flip the engine over. Well, I'm confident that head is draining fine and all the contaminants are pushed out. It clearly ran freely down here. So now it's time to flip this engine over. Because I've taken that crankshaft out and I knew I was going to have to completely spin this engine over to reinstall the crankshaft, I have decided to order a new gasket for this water housing. So I've removed that just so I can spin this engine over. So I'm going to do the same again, force oil through all them galleyways and flush everything out. And now with the engine this way up, it should push everything out through the head and, well, on the floor. I'm pretty satisfied that is all running clear and everything's working, and I think I've made enough mess for one day. Time to clear all of this up and start putting the engine back together. So that is the main rotating assembly all put back together. The only thing stopping me going further is the oil pump. Nothing else can go on until that pump is on. So I'm really not sure what to do until that oil pump's here. So a good few weeks have passed and still no oil pump. I actually ordered the stage 3 boundary oil pump way before Christmas, about 8 weeks ago. And I've given up, I can't wait anymore. And I've given up, I just want to get this car started and on the dyno. But luckily one of my friends, James, he's going a different route with his car, so he was selling lots of bits. And one of them is a stage 2 oil pump from Boundary. Not exactly the one I wanted, but as long as it makes oil pressure, it's good enough for now. Brand new and still in the bag. Very important oil seal. So the main difference between this billet boundary one and a standard oil pump is the internal of the pump. I'm not going to open this up as that is already primed and ready to go. But basically there's a larger galleyway for all the oil here. And the internal gears are a lot stronger than the standard ones. The standard oil pump gears can take about 6 kSI of stress, whereas the ones in this billet one can take about 90 kSI of stress. Basically a lot more shock loading. That'll be able to handle banging through gears, bashing off the limiter, and ignition cuts. Most importantly, save my engine hopefully. As standard, this oil pump comes with a 72 psi shim in here. You can up this if you wish, but I'm not going to for my situation. So now we can install a nice new front main seal. I've gone for a genuine Mazda one. A little bit of oil around the outside to help that in. I'm going to apply a small bit of lubricant around the centre to help that slide on the crank. Now the all-important seal at the back of the pump. The oil pump pumps oil through here and through this hole. So this is the main oil feed for the whole engine. Very important this seal is in here. Put a small drop of RTV just to make sure that oil seal stays in place. Now we've just got to put RTV everywhere it needs it. The engine is all clean and ready for the oil pump. Make sure that O-ring's in there. I've got a nice new packet of bolts specifically to put the oil pump on the engine. So that is the Boundary Stage 2 oil pump all installed and ready to go. The rest of the maintenance surfaces on the engine are all cleaned up. The windage plate, oil pickup and the sump are all cleaned up and ready to go. Now I've already covered the rest of the engine rebuild before on my channel, so I'm going to breeze over this and just film a few key moments. But the rest of the engine is ready to go back together.
Why don't we run away?
So that is the engine all back together and ready to go back in the car. Obviously it's not ideally what I wanted to do. I wanted to put that stage 3 boundary pump in, but the stage 2 will do for this engine. Hopefully this time I get some oil pressure. So I'm going to get the engine back into the car off of camera, hopefully with some help from Charlie, and hopefully the next video you're going to see is the car running again with oil pressure. So that's all for this video. As per usual, like, comment, share and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.